All right. We finally did it. You are on the Leaders Who Care series.
We made it. Happy to
Okay.
be here.
No thanks to delayed flights and all sorts of different things going on. But Alexandra, aka Alex, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. I think people will see why you are a leader who cares pretty quick. First of all, why don't you briefly share with us who Alex is, like where you're from originally, where you are now, family, as much as you want to talk about, maybe something you've never told anybody you want to reveal to the world now. That's always cool. Don't have
The
to.
moment.
But
All right. Well,
not the business part yet. Just tell us
yes,
about you.
life. All right. So, Alexandra, I am actually full circle, finally living where I grew up back in DC. I had a little bit of a roundabout, a little bit of an around the world experience before coming back, but I was born and raised in Northern Virginia. I went to school up in Boston University. Lived out in Los Angeles for a long time, had a couple different careers, and then I came back East Coast to go to SCAD for grad school. I was a an actor and in performing arts, and we'll get to the business side later. But that did end up that turned to a very different industry and very different role. Although I do still act, but I have a few different hats that I wear. But it brought me back here to DC. So I live in DC now. Let's see, something that I've never told anybody before about myself. Uh,
You don't have to.
I I have a fear of not heights, but I have a fear of floors falling from underneath me. Like something about architecture has always terrified me, and I don't trust floors.
So
That's
in,
it.
so in the Seattle thing there or Toronto
Oh,
thing there when
forget
they
it.
have the glass
Yeah,
floors, that wouldn't work for
forget
you.
it. Yeah, I hate high rises, anything. I do happen to live in an apartment complex, but I purposefully chose a lower floor. I couldn't do it on the top floors. I'll hang out there for a little bit, but I couldn't live on a penthouse ever.
I can get, it's interesting when I walk in New York, for example, crossing the street, as I've gotten older, I've had more feelings, if you will, about the size of everything around me and walking and and we're just little people, but everything's so huge.
Yeah.
Like it's all like coming at you. And it's a weird feeling.
We're not someone alike. You
So I get, well, I'm worried about it coming from all sides, and you're worried about it down on the
about the
front.
underneath. Yes, together we're just afraid.
Hey, we are who we
Or
are, and it's
together we can be braver about the two.
absolutely teams win championships. That's
Yes,
how it goes.
we can't do it alone.
So, do you have any brothers, sisters?
I do. I have a younger brother, a couple years younger. He's in software engineering side. I have two younger half sisters that are both in college, actually. And it's been, uh, well, again, we'll turn to the business side later, but that's been something really special to be able to see some of the impact of what I do. To be able to speak with my own sisters about that and to see how they've been impacted by mental health and to watch them grow up has made a huge impact on this organization. But yeah, two younger half sisters. My parents both divorced, both remarried, but they're both in the DC area. So I finally came home to my family, to home. And that's been amazing too, transparently being back with my village
Yeah,
here.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I actually love DC. I think there's a lot of smart people if you leave out the
Yeah.
politicians, and we're all good. So we talked about your sisters and whatnot, and I always like to ask, like, what were you like as a kid or a teenager?
Yeah.
Were you an actor, or were you acting out? Were you playing with computers? Were you music? What were you up to?
So I was well, I grew up, originally, I went to a private school. Third grade, I went to public school. I was terrified. It was a very different platform than I was used to, studying very different things. It was more of a faith based private school. And then, so going to a public school, we're studying very different things. Um, I was shell shocked. I was bullied a lot. I went from being very talkative and outgoing to being very quiet. I felt like I didn't belong, like I didn't fit in. I was a bookworm. I loved reading. I loved Neopets. I was obsessed with this website, Neopets. I would play the same kind of computer video game. Loved Dance Dance Revolution. I was very into the one that you played online with the keys. And I mean, when I say I was a bookworm, and nerd, I would walk through the hallways with my books. I would get lost in fantasy novels. I loved fantasy. I was very, I was kind of a people pleaser, but also I didn't care what people thought in the sense that it wasn't that I didn't want to be popular. I wanted to be popular. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to have
Sure.
friends, but I couldn't quite understand what was wrong with me. I just felt like I was different and I didn't belong, but I didn't know what it was. So I kind of was just happy as I was, but I was bullied a lot. And I was kind of in middle school and high school. Then I settled into this middle range. And I think it's important to paint the picture. Honestly, we don't talk about it enough, how important and how much bullying and how much childhood and how you grow up, how that impacts how you become later. But I sat in this middle range where I knew that I wasn't the strangest, if you will. I wasn't the most made fun of, but I wasn't popular either. And so I always had a lot of empathy for those that were really, really bullied heavily. But then secretly, I always also wanted to be that popular girl.
Hmm.
And I think that, as I can get into later, led to a lot of my strengths and weaknesses as an individual, or to my own for my own personality. As I grew up, I constantly felt the need to prove myself, fit in, be something. But at the same time, it was a strength because I feel like I've been able to develop a lot of empathy, and I really connect with people because of that. I can understand people well because of that. But that's what I did. And I was a dancer. I was a performer. I was in fourth grade, so excited to join the choir. That was my dream, was to join the choir. I was a singer. I thought I was going to be on Broadway. I wanted to go to school for musical theater, ended up at Boston University studying business, which was a blessing in disguise. I loved it. And I made great friendships and connections there. And business, I will say, is not the worst thing to study. No matter what you do, you are your own business, and you're always going to have to understand business in some manner and some capacity. So I don't have any regrets there. But I do miss performing a lot and being in a choir. There was something really special about harmony, but there was something more magical about singing in sync. When the entire choir sang the same note, there's something bone chillingly connected.
No, it's
I feel, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's true. I have client Lennar is one of the top residential real estate developers in the country, and I don't know if they still do it, but years ago, about once a week, they have all the people come down from headquarters into their big foyer, whatnot, and sing together.
Wow,
And at the beginning,
that's
people were saying, I
amazing.
don't know, but the accountants and engineers, they're not going to really want to do this. And some of them didn't want to do it because it looked corny, right? And stuff. But they did it. And you're right, it brings people together. And I won't spend too much time on this, but there's an organization called Kulu Lam based out of Israel that does this with people around the world.
It's a
And
good,
they
yeah.
yeah, and it's spectacular. It's spectacular.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And I mean, there's something to be said for singing also. They've proven so much about singing, what it does, what the physiological responses that your body has to song, whether it's listening to music, singing. I also dare someone to sing Hakuna Matata and not be happy. I mean, there's just no way. I dare you to try. It's impossible.
I
So
agree. There's no way. Yeah, it just makes you feel good.
yeah,
Even things with Alzheimer's, how people remember words of songs. They might not remember other
I
stuff,
know that.
but they yeah. So Tony Bennett and Glenn Campbell went on tour with Alzheimer's, both of them, and they were able to go out and sing the songs, and but they wouldn't remember other stuff, but they remembered their songs,
Wow,
and it's
that's amazing.
become musical therapy for
Oh yeah,
for that and
just
stuff. So
cute.
it's interesting. So I always find it interesting, and I agree with you how we're influenced significantly by things that happened to us as a
Hmm.
kid and grew up, and So not surprised that you can take care of yourself now after all that bullying.
Yeah.
Um, so your journey prior to your current role, share, you started a little bit with about your education. Share about that a little bit and some of your early work history in terms of what were you envisioning for your future?
Yeah. So when I grew up here in Northern Virginia, I lived in the Fairfax district. And if anybody knows Fairfax County, it is a very competitive high school environment. And I want to say the average GPA, I would not be surprised if it were a 4.0 or above. I mean, really, it was high achievers, and everybody is taking numerous AP courses and which college level courses in high school, very, very competitive. And so I always kind of sat somewhere in the middle. I was taking these honors AP courses, but I wasn't the straight A student. I wasn't the best in the school. I wasn't the worst in the school. I was fine. Um, but I did always have this mentality of extra for an A and what can you do more, and kind of overachieving. So like I mentioned, I thought that I was going to be kind of Broadway bound. I really thought that was my career path. When I went to Boston University, I still was in performance. I did musical theater outside, and I knew that I wanted to act. I knew I wanted to be an actor. I hadn't quite made that transition to film. I didn't know what that looked like. So immediately after graduation, I actually started with an organization called TJX. They run TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Home Goods. I started with them as a data analyst. They have this program where they, what do you call it? Uh, I don't know exactly what you call it, but a corporate training program, if you
Training,
will,
right.
where you go up the ladder. So I started as an analyst, as everyone does, and winter of 2014, there was a big snowstorm, the snowpocalypse, I think it was called, or snowmageddon, one of those two. And this is up in Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm talking, it is up to my maybe shoulders, chest. I am 5'10". I'm pretty tall. I couldn't walk through it. The last bit of snow melted on July 14th. We got an email from the mayor saying that it had finally melted. It was bad. And I had written on my mirror, get out, get out. I was ready to leave Boston. I did not want to be there. And my game plan was to move with TJX, and I wanted to become a buyer first before I did anything. I wanted to kind of maybe it was to prove to myself, but I really wanted to be a buyer and experience that. So, but I knew ultimately that I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to get to LA. So they had a buying office in Los Angeles. So I went with the company to Los Angeles, demoted myself. I had this whole strategic game plan. They did not have my position as an analyst in the Los Angeles office, but they had the buyers and the buyers assistants. So I demoted myself to be a buyer's assistant, and everyone at my company, my planning manager, she said, "This is crazy. What are you doing?" I said, "I know what I'm doing." She said, "Well, you have to apply to have that position." I'm like, "I have to apply. I'm demoting myself, but you had to go through this whole process." And I'm a Scorpio. I'm a little bit, I don't want to say manipulative, but I am a little calculated. So I very much knew what I was doing. So I get to that office and I use my I guess knowledge of the corporate space to prove myself in that space. So I had been an analyst. I knew how to operate under that role. So I went there as an assistant, and I'm the overly eager assistant that comes up, and I say, "Well, I've done this analysis on children's toys, and this is what this movie is coming out next week, and that's the effect that it's going to have on sales for this, and I wanted to get their attention to know I care about this. And I think I went to drive your own development was what I was going off of. That's what I heard at the corporate office. And I went there, and I went to whoever the overseeing manager was, and I said, "Listen, this is the role that I want, and I will prove to you that I can do it and that I'll get there." Well, fast forward, I did get there. I was the youngest buyer, but then I got called into her office, and she said, "You are far too bullish, and you are not, your vendors think that you're disrespectful because you are a little bit too, too harsh." She's like, "You need to tone it down." And she was not wrong. And the reason that I was doing that is because I was so young, and that's how I saw people succeeding at the home office. And that's how I saw people succeeding at this office. And I kept hearing from the company, drive your own development, drive your own development. And she was honest with me. She said, yes, this is how you got here. You did hard work. You voiced what you wanted, and you did prove yourself, and we noticed you. But now it's time to just settle into who you are, find your own way of doing this. Don't try to copy the buyers who are much older than you, because they've had a lot of experience and they're not you. And it comes off as disrespectful when there's somebody younger that is coming to the table being a little bit, forceful and bullish. And I cried. I cried for days. I was like, that is, I'm this shy, quiet girl that stepped into this position. I'm finally learning how to come into my own skin. I never meant to rub somebody the wrong way. It just, but it was a moment of self-reflection. And I really sat for a long time and tried to figure out who am I? What is my style? How do I like to show up? And I'm still figuring it out. Fast forward, I loved the buying role, but I knew that I wanted to be an actor. And as I kept doing it for a long time, and then it started to just feel a little bit like a hamster wheel. It was, am I going to do this year after year? And it's not really what I care about. And so I quit to chase my dreams and my passion, and I did become an actor. I struggled for a long time going from that rigid structure of corporate to being on my own. I no longer had a steady paycheck. I didn't have validation from accomplishments. So I wasn't, going into work and saying, I've achieved XYZ. I can now go out with a friend. I can now, make myself dinner, go home, whatever it was. My days just felt like I was floating, and I didn't have any, I just didn't have anything to grab onto, any accomplishments, achievements. And I am definitely type A. I'm,
Really?
yeah, I know, shocking, nobody. So that was really when my eating disorder got bad. And I fast forward a bit, a couple of years later, I went into treatment in Los Angeles for an eating disorder. I was diagnosed with anorexia after feeling like I was at the top of my world. I thought I was doing great. I thought I was happy. I was going to the gym with friends. I was eating well. I thought, all this messaging. Um, I was there for 8 months. I finally came out of that. Um, Mixed bag, which that I can detail either on or offline at some point, but it was tough. I feel still to this day that there's a lot of trauma that came from that experience. At the same time, there's a lot that I'm now aware of, and a lot of coping mechanisms and a lot of connection that I've now formed with myself and with others from that experience. At the end of the day, I needed help. Whether that was the help I needed, I might not ever know. It could have looked a little bit different, but regardless, it's led to who I am today, and it's a part of my woven cloth now, and it is part of a major part of the foundation of the organization that I run now. It was based on those experiences being in treatment. Following treatment, I went to Savannah College of Art and Design right around the pandemic times for grad school for performing arts. I was still an actor at this point. And while I was in Savannah in grad school, I filmed the short film Blackbird. That short film was based on a young woman who I met at a treatment center and our relationship. It's a narrative short film. And that narrative short film is the heartbeat of the organization Project Blackbird, which is the program that we take around nationally to address awareness and access to mental health care for students, marginalized populations, incarcerated individuals, and beyond.
Wow. You know, the best thing about having experiences is if you learn from them, right? And
Absolutely.
there's a story about a young Nigerian girl, and there's lots of stories like this, even in sports. Started playing chess when she was younger, and then playing for fun, and then she got better, and then she got better, and then people started noticing her, and then she won regional turns, then she won national, and she got even better, and then she went international. I'm shortening the story, and got even better, and one somebody asked her at one point. They did a movie on her Yeah, what does it feel like to not win all the time? She said, I never lose. Well, then they would say, well, what do you mean? You don't win all the time? No, I never lose. I win and I learn, but I never lose. And
Love
yeah, it might, some people might say, oh, just nitpicking on words and whatnot, but it's the mindset that is.
absolutely.
And if I compare that to sports, which I do a lot of times, usually teams that lose championships first end up winning championships later. They don't generally win a championship right away and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Somebody, well, many of my advisors actually have said something along those lines to me, even with the organization, which the organization has done very well. And I anticipate it will continue to do very well. And it's very well supported. But if it fails, quote unquote, it doesn't fail. It's the first of many. And what so many have told me is, you know, we all have multiple careers, multiple stages to our career. This is not the first and not the last of what I'm going to do and what we'll do for, for good and for mental health and all of that. Um, but just remembering, to your point, there is no lose, there is no failure. It's experience and it's what you learn. Um, and this is slightly different too, but a friend of mine once told me magic is real if you believe it. And I hold on to that all the time, that there are messages everywhere, and it's a message if you consider it a message. And if it's not, then you missed it and let it go, and then it's not. But, magic is real. If you lean into something and you take it as guidance, or you take it as a message, or you take it as a lesson, then it is. You've decided.
well, they do say that there's something about birds flying up to you or flying here or flying there that something's happening there. However you want to make it,
Mm,
that's my mom that's came to see if I'm
yeah,
okay or whatever type of thing. And you know what? If it is great, if it's not great, but if you
exactly.
believe it,
Then it is.
good.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
So
I love
why
the
not?
bird reference too. You know that we like our birds, our blackbirds.
Well, there's a Beatles song, I'm sure you know, called Blackbird, or do you?
Mhm. I
And
do. Yes.
and there's it's a great song. It's a great song. And so anyways, we won't go into that now, nor will I sing it because no one will watch the video.
Oh, please.
Um,
That'll get us so many views here.
so you've talked great about your journey, and I appreciate it. It reminds me of, Jay Leno used to talk about Robin Williams when he interviewed him. He would say, "Hey, Robin," and then he never had to say anything else because Robin would just keep going and whatnot. So
Sorry for that
you did great.
lengthy.
No, it was awesome. You got great points I wanted to get in there, and one of them was, and you've touched on it. It's gotten a lot better. It's still times to go about women in business and women in leadership
Mm,
roles, etc. Um, it's certainly better than it used to be, but there's still a long way to go, and women getting investment money and funding money and so on
yeah.
and so forth. Um, Share a little bit about, briefly, a little bit about how it felt being a
Yeah.
woman in the world you're in.
Yeah. I had an interesting experience at TJX, because TJX happens to be a company with many women. That being said, the one thing I will note, one thing that I thought was very interesting, a lot of my work with vendors was done via email. And when I wasn't making a phone call, when it was over email, if I cold emailed a vendor, I noticed very different responses if I signed off as Alex versus Allie. And
I had a feeling you
so,
were going to say that.
so yes, I used to go by Allie. And somewhere down the road in business, I think somebody just called me Alex and it stuck. And I love Alex, actually. It feels very fitting.
I think
People
so.
call me both still, but I love Alex. And um very different responses. I was taken far more seriously as Alex. Negotiating was far easier when I signed off as Alex. And I do think part of the challenge that I had finding my groove was the expectations um, and the norms, I'll say, of being a woman in the workplace. You don't find women advocating as much, or in the past you haven't found women negotiating as much for salary. You don't find women being as blunt as men are in business. So I think it is a bit jarring when we in the past, I think, have this precedent of coming in a more apologetic sense. A lot of women I've read this, and I do this myself, trying to stop it. We use verbiage in emails such as just. I just wanted to say, I just wanted to introduce myself. Why are we apologizing before we even say something or do something? But it's in our nature, I think, to apologize. I'm trying now in life in general to say thank you instead of I'm sorry. And I think when appropriate, thank you for thank you for waiting. Thank you for being patient. I'm really excited that we're able to meet now. Thank you for rescheduling with me a couple of times due to my missed flights. I really appreciate it. And I'm so excited to be here. Now there's a time and a place, and I am apologetic for having to reschedule,
Would you say
but
if you were Canadian, it would be a lot easier because we
I'm
say it more
sorry.
than yeah, exactly. But I hear what you're saying, and it's like, not being able to ask for a raise. It's like there's all
Yeah.
that stuff that's there, and
Yeah.
it's still there. It's not as bad, but it's still there.
Yeah, it is. And I think I actually enjoy, and this might not be the belief of everybody, but I do enjoy a little bit being kind and goofy and lightly apologetic. I mean, it's part of my nature. I like to lead a team where I am just me. And if that is not always the most, I don't know, blunt, or if that's not always, I like to be direct in communication, but I still think I can be sweet and goofy and kind and be a leader all at the same time. And I don't believe in changing that about myself. So I'm trying to find still as a leader my own groove where I have where I set the stage of being a leader in my own way, and in an authentic way. And I think not just being a woman, but being a woman that struggles with mental health, that's been a unique challenge for me as well. How do you be a leader and be honest and vulnerable about also needing help and also struggling with mental health, and setting a new precedence that that's okay, that you can be high achieving and you can be a leader and say I'm not perfect and I struggle, and that's okay.
Well,
And
Well, the leaders that are becoming and have become the best leaders are the leaders that are most vulnerable about all that stuff, including now mental health, which still has a way to go, but it's going to get there where people are going to be okay talking about it. People are going to be
yeah,
okay not lying about why they can't come into work that day.
yeah,
People are going to be okay, and other people are going to be okay with people having mental health issues, because that means they're human beings. And there's a semi joke in LA that there's something wrong with you if you don't have a therapist, basically. Uh,
yeah,
so-
it's true. I mean, in some communities and some populations, it is becoming very well acknowledged and well received. I think it has a long ways to go in a lot of different marginalized populations, even amongst, I will say, men. I think with a lot of women, it's becoming a little bit safer to say I need help. I need a therapist. But I think for a lot of men, there is still this stigma of what it means to be a man, quote unquote. I would love to redefine strength as vulnerability.
Well, it's coming, and you're right. There's, especially certain groups where the man has to be. They say, I don't want to humiliate my family. I have to be strong.
Yeah.
Well, real men can eat quiche now. We can cry. We're allowed to do all that stuff. I had the best interview with the CEO maybe a year and a half ago who said, I'm having the best time being a CEO. I can actually be emotional when I wasn't before. I can be
Mm,
vulnerable and I don't have to pretend that I know everything because it was so hard to do that. And I've learned how to
brilliant.
trust my people, and the people that I've trusted have done great because I trusted them. And
Yeah.
it's if we do remember, and this is a different conversation, breast cancer was a stigmatized thing too. And
Yeah.
it came out and people were okay to talk about it after that, but it was embarrassing or whatever if you had it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, change can be made for sure. And I think something interesting about what you said about this other CEO also about finally being able to speak about having struggles or not being perfect or not having all the answers, and then there's trust that's built there. You can trust that CEO more as well, because if if there's an individual that can say, I don't know everything, this is what I don't know, how much more do you trust them now when they say, but this is what I do know? And
Hmm.
it's almost the extrovert in my mind, it's almost comparing the extroverts to the introverts. I'm an extrovert and I hate that I speak so much and I speak out loud. I really, really look up to and value the introverts that say few words, but when they say it, you listen because it's important. And they're
Yep.
saying because it's important. And I think that's the energy that you give off when you're able to ask for help where your strengths are not there. If you're able to say, I'm not good at this,
Yeah.
but I am good at that, now they're listening.
And the
Now,
loudest voice is not always the one that knows
yeah,
everything. They're just the loudest one,
100%.
basically. Well, talk a little bit about. Well, I'll go back a little bit. They say the fourth industrial revolution is about AI and technology, but the fifth
Yeah.
is about humanity. And that's what we're all talking about right now. How do you combine those? Share a little bit now more about Blackbird, a little bit of the history, what is the actual vision? What is it all about? What does a day, a month look like at Blackbird?
Yeah. So Project Blackbird, Project Blackbird Inc., the organization, at large, in a quick nutshell, what we do is we go to different universities, we run a program where it's film based. We screen a film and then we engage different athletes or celebrities sharing their lived experience, sharing their story with the youth. And we do that so that these kids can see that their heroes are human and struggle. And following that, we have a journal prompt we engage our audience in. It's an anonymous journal a swap. And then we provide all of our audience members with free therapy for a year. The organization pays for, and then we connect them in the back of the room with a resource fair. What makes this organization special is truly the almost the model that we use of awareness plus engagement plus support all together in the moment. That's what leads to change. It's not we're helping to end the stigma alone. It's not, we're helping to spread awareness alone. It's not we're giving therapy alone. It's we are doing it all in tandem, in combination, so that we catch these individual lives. We meet them where they're at and we help support them while they're hearing us, while they're invested. And a day in the life, we are right now building incredibly strong foundations. So I'm actually taking a step back right now. It's the summertime, so there's not as much programming, which is nice for us. We go into a lot of the school programming come August, starting August for orientation and then really big into the different months, if you will, Eating Disorder Awareness Week, Mental Health Awareness Month, all of that. But we program throughout the year. But we just had our first gala, and now we're entering largely into the policy space as well. Now that all that's happened, I have taken a step back with my team and I realized that I need help as a CEO. I need help. I cannot do it all. So we're really doing a lot right now to build foundations. And I will tell you, Monday.com this past week has become my new best friend. I really getting organized. We have so many wonderful contacts, partners, relationships. It all lives up here for me. I'm a very cerebral. I don't write a lot down. I don't have a lot on my computer. People will say, how did you get this sponsor? I don't know. I emailed them. I called them. I'm just very, I don't, I am
You
almost
need a
too
chief
quick.
of staff.
And I found one, honestly. So that's what my day to day looks like now. I did find myself a partner in crime. I think everybody needs, even if it's an assistant, a chief of staff. I have an incredible intern with me right now. Paid intern. I think that's important. Make sure, these interns are working really, really hard. And I remember being that age and being so frustrated, even if it's a little bit to say thank you,
Mhm.
something. But she has been phenomenal. And having somebody, having somebody that can help balance out and complement your skills and
Sure.
your strengths. And my weaknesses are um, being organized. I am not, I'm not very organized when it comes, and I'm not very tech savvy. So having somebody that can help me
So
manage all that's in my mind and all that I'm doing So we're really building foundations and working with my board to do so. And but it is a day in the life is a little hectic, and I am hoping to take a little bit of a step back too, to take care of my own health and mental health, because it has been
Well,
a lot.
as a flight attendant, you know you have to put the oxygen mask on you first.
That's right. Yeah, that's my side job. Everyone is.
Yes, I know. I know. Um, but it's a good analogy for so many
Yeah,
things where if you're not prime time, how can you really help anybody, whether you're a parent or anything,
100%.
you know?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so,
Yeah. And I am realizing the more I do actually take care of my own mental health from a leader standpoint, those that are working with me and underneath me, and I think they've noticed too a little bit of a difference. I think and I hope that they feel better taken care of as well. And I have found myself better able to actually check in with them and see how they're doing, because now I feel more peaceful and taken care of. So I can really set the precedence for my own organization that if they need to be honest about it, they can with me too.
yeah, that's the vulnerability that we're talking about, no matter what it is, if it's mental health or just whatever. When people see that, they do get a sense of not only experience but caring that
Yeah,
you in some ways caring enough about other people to share and trusting other people to share what's going on with yourself.
absolutely. And I will say, working also with this younger generation, what I found is they care, as employees, as interns, they care about how they're treated. They care about the impact of the organization. They're very advocacy
Yep.
oriented. They care about things outside of salary. And I think a lot of companies are going to realize, as retention rates change, and I think that they might. I mean, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of turnover before a lot of companies realize how important benefits are outside of salary and
Well,
monetary.
a lot of our clients are, because that's the ones we work with, leaders who care about that stuff.
Yeah,
And clearly retention does good retention does come from that. And because but I will tell you what's great about things happening now is that um candidates, people that want certain jobs, they want to both make money and they want to have purpose in their life. It doesn't mean they
perfect.
want to be a gazillionaire, but they do want to make money, like you said, even for an intern.
Yeah,
They want something, and
yes,
because it is value, and it is important. As is the experiences that you're offering them to have, rather than just years of experience of
yeah.
working, are really, really important. So, but I'm going to have to pause there, and I got one more question because in LA, which you know about, in LA, we always say keep them wanting more so we can do a sequel. So we may have to do a sequel.
Let's do it.
But I do have
Buckled
one more
in.
question here. And I had a client tell me in 2021, they said, Mark, the year 2020, which was the pandemic year, was the year that flew by slowly.
Yeah.
And I
Mm,
thought that was a really interesting statement because now even it seems like yesterday, and it's hard to believe it was 5 years ago that
completely.
that was happening. So now we're fast and furious going into the second half of 2025. And with all that, can you share with us what you're most grateful for and also what you're most hopeful for?
What I am most grateful for is that, and now I have had, very transparently, and I think a lot of people in the mental health space probably have, and a lot of founders and leaders probably have. I have had some friends that have walked away from me in my struggle. And I try very, very hard, being so busy, to continue to keep up relationships, care for others, um, be invested in the friendships that I really care about, and family. But I have had some friends that, when I struggled a second time around, were not as understanding, and we parted ways, and my heart hurts a lot for those friendships. But I will say I am so incredibly grateful for the ones that didn't, because there were a lot that did not. And I have incredible friends and family that have supported me, that have been there to say, you're working too hard, slow down. But at the same time, we love what you're doing and we champion you for what you're doing. So how can we help if you won't slow down? I, you know, I,
Well, that's
and
not a
because
good
that's
one.
real.
They give you an out then to not slow down.
I know, but you know, it is the reality sometimes. It was a choice that I made and that I cognizantly made um to be doing a lot of things and moving quickly, knowing that it could not be my forever, knowing that it had to end at some point. And so I feel so grateful to have those friends and family that continue to be there and check in, and help me set boundaries when I need to also. What I am most hopeful for,
Mhm.
I hope one day my organization does not have to exist. I hope that one day the word stigma doesn't around mental health just doesn't have meaning anymore. Um, this is a light tangent, but there was a comedian once that said something along the lines of, "I will never tell my daughter that she can be anything she wants to be, because why should I ever put the thought in her mind that she couldn't?" And in that sense, I hope we get to a point where we don't have to say, let's end the stigma, because what stigma are we talking about? This is just part of the human experience. Shame just does not deserve to have a place around mental health. We're just complicated brains, beautiful brains, and we are all human, and we should not have to apologize for being alive.
No, well said. It's the same conversation of I don't want to hear I'm the first woman to do this anymore or anything like
Yeah.
that type of thing. So, well, I'm super grateful for having a really cool new friend. And
Right back
and um and I'm grateful that you are a leader who cares, and you need to keep caring about yourself and others and all that, and I'm hopeful for the same reason because you do. So thanks for being on the series and sharing all that. Really, really appreciate it.
Mark, back at you. Thank you for everything that you do and for all the voices that you shed light on and champion, and for seeing others, and for your voice as well. You are amazing for what you do. Thank you.
Thanks.